Hello, we are watching V News Broadcast Daily and following today's highlights.
Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng visits Belgium and the European Union. It will further step up Vietnam's cooperation with these partners. Representatives of overseas Vietnamese make comments on draft amendments to the 1992 Constitution. ADB lends Vietnam $176 million to have increased public-private partnerships, among other projects.
Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng visit to Belgium and the European Union is a significant event in bringing Vietnam's cooperation with these partners to new heights. Trọng arrived in Brussels, Belgium on January 17th and had several important talks and meetings with Belgian and European Union leaders. We find out more.
On January 17th, Belgian time, Party General Secretary Trọng was greeted in an official welcome ceremony in Brussels by Belgian Prime Minister Elio Di Rupo. In the following talks, Prime Minister Di Rupo stated that Vietnam is a priority in his country's cooperation strategy. He spoke of Vietnam's role in the region and its contributions to regional cooperation and development. The Vietnamese leader affirmed that Vietnam values Belgium's role in Europe and the world, and considers the country an important partner, in particular as a link between Vietnam and the EU, as well as other European countries. The two leaders outlined measures to increase cooperation in various fields. They witnessed the signing of cooperation agreements between the two countries, including memoranda of understanding to fund Vietnam's climate change response and the construction of Dinh Vu Port in Hai Phong City. In his talks with party leader Trọng, President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, said the European Commission highly values its cooperation with Vietnam and its greater role in Southeast Asia. The EU pledged to increase official development assistance to Vietnam in the 2014 to 2020 period, expand ties to potential fields such as economic structure development, and provide technical assistance to the country's industrialization and modernization. Trọng affirmed that Vietnam sees the EU as a top partner and prioritizes the Union in its external policy and wants to develop a long-term, stable and all-faceted relationship with the Union. They agreed that the signing of the Vietnam-EU Partnership and Cooperation Agreement and the first negotiation round for the Free Trade Agreement are practical and important steps for Vietnam and EU member countries to establish closer political and economic ties and all-sided cooperation and enjoy an equal partnership. Party leader Trọng and European Council President Rompuy sought ways and orientations to elevate the EU-Vietnam relations further. Rompuy expressed his wishes to cement and further the friendship and cooperation between the EU and Vietnam. Trọng said he expects the EU to soon recognize Vietnam's market economy and facilitate long-term investments and business activities of both sides. At the talks, Party leader Trọng and the two EU officials stressed the importance of ASEAN-EU ties. Regarding the East Sea issue, the two officials said the European Union backs the settlement of disputes by peaceful measures, on the basis of international law and the early establishment of a code of conduct in the East Sea. Earlier on the day, party leader Trọng met with Belgian Crown Prince Philip. Trọng highly valued the role of the Belgian royal in politics and thanked the Crown Prince for his support and cooperation with Vietnam over the past years. Trọng and Prince Philip were delighted with positive and diverse developments in the two countries' friendship and cooperation. They agreed to strengthen trade exchange and investment in the fields that Belgium is successful, including logistics, seaport development, transport, green technology, space technology, heavy industry and healthcare.
Representatives of overseas Vietnamese had a close look at the draft amendments to the 1992 Constitution at the conference held by the Vietnam Fatherland Front in Hanoi on January 17.
The participating overseas Vietnamese focused their comments on human rights, basic citizen rights and responsibilities, political and economic system, and the government protection for legitimate rights of Vietnamese community abroad. They expressed happiness to have their voices heard in the development of the Constitution, a legal document with great significance for the country's development. There should be a provision giving the same rights and obligations to overseas Vietnamese legally investing in Vietnam as those living in the country, they suggested. Nearly 4 million Vietnamese are residing in about 100 countries and territories. In 2012, they sent home $11.2 billion in remittances.
Around 50 international delegates will take part in activities to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the signing of the agreement concerning termination of the war and restoration of peace in Vietnam, known as Paris Agreement in Vietnam.
The delegates from 14 countries and international organizations directly or indirectly contributed to the success of the agreement. They will attend a state-level meeting, meet with party and state leaders, plant trees at Hoa Binh Park, and join the exchange program Paris Agreement and Friends Heart in Hanoi. In Ho Chi Minh City, they will take part in a meeting with historical witnesses and visit the War Remnants Museum and AO victims. In the history of Vietnam, the Paris Agreement took the longest negotiating time, from March the 15th, 1968 to January 27th, 1973. It was Vietnamese people's historical triumph in the Vietnam War.
The State Bank of Vietnam on January 17th signed with the Asian Development Bank 4 loan agreements totaling $174 million to support 4 projects in the country.
The loans will come from the Asian Development Fund of the Asian Development Bank. They will have the Vietnamese government increase public-private partnerships, enhance the competitiveness of towns along the Greater Mekong Sub-region economic corridors, improve food safety, and develop the national capacity to mitigate HIV risks and vulnerability in border areas with other countries in the Greater Mekong Sub-region. The largest loan, worth $130 million, will have converted the towns of Dong Ha, Lao Bảo, and Mộc Bài along the east-west and southern economic corridors into economic hubs. Some $15 million will have the government develop its national and regional capacity to mitigate HIV risks and vulnerability, primarily in Vietnam's 15 border provinces.
The 500 largest Vietnamese businesses in 2012 were announced on January 18th in Hanoi. The state-run Vietnam National Oil and Gas, Vietnam National Petroleum, and Vietnam Post and Telecommunications groups topped the list.
The other businesses in the top 10 are Samsung Electronics Vietnam, Vietsoft Petro, Vietel Group, Saigon Jewelry Company, Electricity of Vietnam, Vietnam National Coal and Mineral Industries Group, and Vietnam Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Combined revenue of the state-owned businesses accounts for 63% of the total revenue of all 500 companies on the list. This affirms the importance of state-run businesses to the country's economy. Communications, chemicals, mechanical engineering, agriculture and forestry are the most profitable sectors. Up to 55% of the 500 businesses predict the economy will not recover in 2013. The list was compiled by e-newspaper Vietnam Net and Vietnam Report Joint Stock Company.
Dung Quất Economic Zone in central Quảng Ngãi province has earned $350 million from exports last year. We have more.
In 2012, the John granted certificates to 6 projects worth around $201 million and approved the investment proposals for 5 others with a total registered capital of about $2.1 billion. Total industry, commerce and service output in Dung Quất John reached 129.8 trillion Vietnam dongs, about $6.2 billion, while state budget revenues received over 16.6 trillion Vietnam dongs, approximately $798 million last year. Cargo transport via the port and the John was 13.8 million tons.
And this is the end of our news today. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.